Welcome to episode 244, Breaking the Cycle, How to Overcome People Pleasing and Find Your Own Voice. Welcome to the Be That 1% podcast. I'm your host, James Silvis, mindset specialist and performance coach. And here on the show, I'm going to challenge you to think deeper, commit to greatness, and develop a stronger mindset. You'll hear stories from those who are living life on their terms, and you'll receive strategies that will help you level up. So the question is, are you ready to be your own 1%? Let's get started. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Be That 1% podcast. I'm your host, James Silvis, mindset specialist, and I am grateful that you are here listening today. Welcome back to the show. Recently, I have been getting reached out to a lot via DM, email, and in the Mind community, which is a network that I'm a part of now, which I've mentioned in previous episodes, and people-pleasing has been coming up more frequent, and so I decided to create a episode specifically around this, talking about 5 key pillars to think about, understand, embody, to begin to work through what can really stunt your level of leadership, your impact, the value that you bring, the money that you can make, the relationship that you can attract. It really comes down to how firm you can be in your truth. And when we're constantly putting others' needs in front of our own, time and time again, forfeiting our own thoughts, surrendering our power, believing that we don't have any value to add, these are all ways of thinking that aren't going to allow us to realize who we really are outside of maybe the limiting belief that we've created for ourselves. And so my hope with this episode is to really give you a framework, a few strategies to work through this. You know, whether you're at a company and you've been there for a while and you're kind of more, you feel like you're more in the background, not really playing as an active player, or you're in your own business, going out there and getting business from a company or series of companies, and not owning your results, not owning your power, your strengths, and the service that you can provide. So let's jump in here. I think the first thing that anyone in this type of situation, which I think if you're a human, you've probably been in this type of situation before where you're people-pleasing more than you would like, is to really identify your motivations, right? Reflect on why you feel the need to please everybody or the people that you're interacting with. Is it because you're wanting their approval? Is it because you need that validation? Are you afraid of conflict, which is a typical sign of people-pleasing, or rejection, right? Believing that you have to act a certain way in order to be accepted, loved, or respected, right? That's one of the most common fears that we've talked about before on this podcast. But understanding your motivations behind the people-pleasing tendency gives you the awareness to make a choice in the moment that is presented when you have the opportunity to either confront this people-pleasing tendency or to continue to operate from default. Most of these actions that we find ourselves in, these situations, operate off of default. There's some sort of underlying fear or belief of lack that we're operating from that causes us to shrink. And you're not born to shrink. You can't stand out and shrink. It just doesn't work. And when you live a life of fear and shrinking, then everything in your life begins to crumble, right? And this doesn't mean that you go out there and you cause a whole bunch of fires and ruffle feathers just for the fun of it. This is really a call to you to grow as a leader, as a parent, as a business owner, however you choose to define yourself, to grow in that area by demonstrating some courage, some awareness, and some discipline in being who you want to be. There's very few things that we have control over as human beings, right? We've been gifted this life. You've been gifted ears to listen to this message. So let's be grateful for that. And we also have control over how we perceive things and how we choose to act, which dictates, which comes from our thinking. So the reason why I call myself a mindset specialist is because I love the mind, and the thinking that goes on in the mind is usually the catalyst for what we feel and what we do. And if we're talking about how to combat, work through, navigate people pleasing, that's very action oriented, which means we have to focus on the thinking that produces the action. But we can't do that until we identify our motivations. Really creating time to dive into ourselves to say, why is this happening? What type of people am I normally doing this with? What do these people remind me of? How is people pleasing benefiting me? And usually what it comes down to is it's because you're avoiding some sort of conflict, you're afraid of some rejection, or you feel you need someone else's approval in order to feel better about yourself. This is the typical kind of responses. And so really sitting with that and being honest with it. And when you find out that that's how you're operating, it's not that we're trying to judge you here to beat yourself down. Oh, I can't believe, you're doing that. Or I can't believe I'm doing that. It's like, this is happening. And we have to look at it objectively. This is not going to help us become the person that we want to be, so we have to do something about it. So that's step one, identify your motivations. Number two is setting boundaries. Communicate your limits and your boundaries with others. Be clear about what you are and what you are not willing to do. Now, one of the ways you could do this is by having values and having goals and a vision, right? Because that creates a priority. And with the priority, you know what's important and what's not important, what's helpful and what's not helpful. So that makes it clearer for you to draw a line. But when you create a boundary by communicating, this can help you feel more in control of your own life and your decisions, because there's order to them. There's intentionality, there's meaning behind it, which is critical in believing it and enforcing it. So creating boundaries around our energy, our time, the people we choose to hang out with, work boundaries and projects that we're being dealt with, and the way people talk to us or communicate with us, like all of this is opportunity to develop your communication skills and draw a line. If you don't draw a line, people are going to cross it every time. And you're valuable. You have to see yourself like that. Your time and energy is sacred. And if you don't view it like that, then people are just going to rob it every time they come into contact with you. They're going to bully you into doing what they want. And you can't be mad at them because you're letting it happen, right? And if they can't understand and meet you halfway, then maybe that's not the environment that you want to be in, or the relationship that's not going to be best supportive for you and the type of person that you want to grow into. And that's also something that you're going to have to look at. And it's really tough to have these kind of conversations, but they're necessary so that we don't live lives of regret or indecision, or we don't wake up feeling exhausted and depleted and living in indecision all the time, because that's more energy draining and taxing. So that's number two, set boundaries. Number three, practice assertiveness. Learn how to express your own needs and opinions in a direct and respectful manner. Not to ramble on because you're nervous and you don't like silence, so you just keep talking to fill space, but to do your best to explain what is acceptable and what's not in a short, concise way. And the better you can do this, and the only way you get better is through practice, but the better you get at this, the more confidence you have in yourself, and again, more control you feel over your own life and how you show up to the spaces that you're in. Number four, learning how to say no. Oh man, no. No is the answer. It's okay to be a complete sentence, and that takes, some practice. Usually we say no and then we offer an explanation. That's one way to start. But no is important. The higher you go and the more successful you become, the better you're going to have to get at saying no. Because everything is going to be exciting and enticing. And if you have a growth mindset, then there's always a possibility to do something everywhere you go. But the higher you go, the more distraction there is, meaning that you're going to have to say no more. So you just got to get good at it. You got to get better at it. It's okay to say no to requests, demands that don't align with your values or priorities. You're not a bad person. You're not selfish. You're not egotistical. You're just truthful, honest, and aligned. And saying no is difficult, but it's one of the fundamental, most important steps in taking control of who you are, your life, and what it's about. And on this podcast, a part of listening to these episodes is learning how to live life on your terms. There's nothing more freeing than that. And freedom isn't just given. Freedom is, you have to demonstrate it. You have to communicate it. You got to sometimes fight for it to keep it active. Otherwise, you're going to be swept into the collective groupthink or the societal hypnosis that a lot of people get caught up in. And you got to be able to say, that's not for me, and let that be okay. Because you may have the courage to say no, but then the environment is so strong and your conviction is not as strong that you kind of get swept back in. But you got to know, like, what are my values? What are my visions? What's my goals? Like, what's important to me? What's me in my own lane? When you have that, and it doesn't have to be as complicated as you think, like something that's meaningful and emotional to you, that you're like, this feels right, double down on that. That's winning at life, because you're playing by your rules. And who created them? You did. Number 5, seek support, right? Talk to a trusted friend, a family member, a therapist, a trusted advisor. But having a network can help you feel more confident in standing up for yourself too, to have people that you can talk about this with, practice with, that reinforce that, 1, you're capable of doing it, 2, you need to do it, and 3, the upside of doing it can be helpful in keeping that story active in our minds when it comes time to actually execute on it. When the pressure is there, when you're in the thick of a conversation and someone's looking you dead in the eyes, like, to have that support system behind you, the people that you're kind of in a way doing it for. I mean, you're doing it for yourself, but like walking it through with other people, you almost bring their spirit into the conversation, which gives you a little bit more conviction and strength to be able to deliver that no, or draw that line, or be that level of assertiveness, right? So these are kind of 5 simple to understand, more challenging to execute strategies that will definitely help you work through people pleasing. So take these for what you will. Some of them you may already be doing. Others, you may not be doing. Maybe you're not doing them all in, like you're partly doing them in certain areas, but not in others. Like, take what you need from this and practice what's really helpful and execute on it, because my guarantee is that you're going to see some shifts in the relationships that you cultivate and that you continue to sustain. So much love, everybody. Thank you for being a part of this community. And if you got value from this, share this with whoever you feel needs to hear this message. Someone who may be going through a tough time with how to handle, themselves in the spaces that they're in. Give them this toolkit. Give them this framework. All right? Until next time, go out there, be your own 1%, and live life on your terms.